My name is Dele Farotimi, and I've been told to say that everything and anything I say would be the truth and nothing but the truth. I promise to do that. I'm not sure anybody serious was actually expecting anything from this administration. Those who were serious about any expectation of change did not ab initio support this administration. So I'm not sure that anyone who had genuine hopes have had their hopes dashed. This administration has done exactly what it promised to do, which is nothing. Because I would imagine that if you're serious about youth employment, one of the fastest ways to do that would be to have dealt with the scourge of insecurity, which would have enabled a whole lot of return to the rural area. But what you're seeing is an accelerated pace of rural despoliation and people moving to urban centers. That simply explains to you that the security situation is not getting any better, so you really cannot move people back towards the rural communities. Hence, you cannot move the youth into farming in any significant number. So I'm not sure, and if you even look at education, you'll find that the only thing that is really happening with the youth population is that they are fleeing. They are fleeing largely because of the seeming hopelessness of our situation. They are fleeing. So I'm not sure anyone who there is nobody who can really say that they genuinely expected that some miracle would happen with youth employment under this administration. Outside of the most obvious for me, which is the rule of law, which would engender confidence both of the local populace and even of those who might wish to invest in our local economy. Outside of that, I would imagine access to credit is probably the most important thing that you could give to the youth to enable them or anyone else who is desirous of creating wealth to come out of poverty. Because if the only credit available to people are credits in the 30s, you are paying 30-something% interest, what real investments can be done with such atrocious rates? The central bank own rate is in the 20s. So I would imagine that any government that is desirous of creating wealth would address the paucity of credit in the system. Because without access to credit, that is before you now begin to deal with all the other infrastructure that should be in place that are not in place, outside of the lack of the rule of law that already governs. Impunity governs our space. To now have to lay on more failures on top of that. If impunity were governing the place and you had a credible credit system, you had security, if we didn't have to deal with the multiple layers of problems that are on top of the insecurity, the lack of credit in the system, then maybe. But the way things are right now is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't deal with these sundry issues, you really cannot turn things around. Perhaps they should resign. Because if you're asking what practical steps we can take, the reality is that that's the elephant in the room. That is the elephant in the room. His very presence in the office is a violation of the sovereign will of the people. He knows it, we know it. So if he's really, really interested in changing anything, he should resign and put in place a credible system that is capable of superintending free and fair elections, and we will never forget him in history. But then, that's just wishful thinking, like me wishing I was a little fairer or a little taller. So